So we're about a week and a half out from the next Lucky Dog race. That is the Ridge on the 22nd. 22nd is our test day, 23rd, 24th are race days. Car is mostly ready, but as things always go, there's last minute things to take care of, details to work on. But basically our program in general is with the race cars, when they come back from an event, first thing we do is a compression test and dyno test them. That tells us, well, the compression test tells us if there are any issues with the motor, anything we need to be concerned about. And we want to do that right away because we have a fairly narrow window in between races to do a full repair. If a motor needs to come out and go to the machine shop, that's a tough timeline to make in between races because they're generally about 4 weeks apart. But we do have a backup motor, and swapping those motors out in between races is no problem. But we want to get on that right away when we get back from an event instead of waiting until right before the next event to do it. So got back from Sonoma, did a compression test on the car. We were down 8% on one cylinder from the compression test prior to the race. So we know this motor's got some issues. We've got problems coming. Problem is backup motor. We are national back order on rod bolts for these. We've talked about it in other videos. And it still persists, and every time I talk to ARP, the deadline gets pushed out a few more weeks for the ship date on those. So pretty unlikely we're actually going to have the backup motor in the car for the Ridge. So we're going to run this motor. And so on the dyno, what that means is 8% loss in compression translates to like a 2% loss in power in the car. It's pretty much not, it doesn't make much difference. It just, we know a problem is coming. And when we're going endurance racing, that's not what we want to see. What we want to see is the exact same compression numbers in the motor every time we test it. So that tells us that what our future might hold. Now we're rolling the dice because we have to run this motor. It has 200 plus hours on it, and we can't run our backup right now. So we just roll the dice and see what happens. Hopefully we don't have a catastrophic failure. Hopefully it's just we're down a little bit on power, but it doesn't have a big impact on the race overall. The car is plenty fast with a 10, 15, 20% loss in power to win the race. If everything goes our way and we get all our pit stops right, we do our pit strategies correctly, and we don't have any incidents on track, we can totally win the race. It's a competitive car. So being down 2% on power doesn't really matter. So back to post-race inspection. So compression test, dyno, and then we nut and bolt the whole car, we inspect it. We go through everything and just verify there aren't any issues we don't know about, like a missing transmission mount, for instance. So everything on all of that stuff is done on the car. We just replaced the rear differential, went to a 427 ring and pinion. We've talked about that in other videos. So we're going to put that back on the dyno now and actually test the ring and pinion on the dyno and just validate that there aren't any issues. We have temperature on differential fluid, and because we have a differential cooler and pump. So we can monitor that while we're on the dyno. We can put it under quite a bit of load, stress test it, make sure there aren't any issues, there aren't any leaks, anything we need to deal with. And that's nice because a lot of these cars aren't street legal, so we can't just take them for a test drive and then put them on the rack and see if there's a leak. There's nowhere to go drive it, and we don't have a track in our backyard, so unless we schedule track time 2 hours away at ORP, the dyno's our next best thing. Our dyno is an all-wheel drive dyno, so we can run it as two-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. It's linked, so all these cars are rear-wheel drive cars, but the nice thing is with the dyno being linked, we can link it, spin the rear tires, which will in turn drive the front tires, and so we can spin the entire drivetrain on the car. We can test the front wheel bearings, make sure all that stuff's good, and it gives us nice peace of mind on the cars to do as much testing as possible without ever leaving our facility. So the other thing we'll do is the car, once any mechanical work or testing is done on it, it's going to go on to our Hunter alignment rack. It's going to get the corner balance checked and the alignment checked. Generally, we don't see a lot of drift in between events. Unless we have an incident on the track or an off, there's typically no adjustment needed. But we always check it because it tells us if perhaps maybe a control arm is getting ready to go out, or a bushing's going out in the car, something we may not catch in a visual inspection. We can see it in the alignment that something is tweaked in the alignment, and then we can catch it there and fix it. So since differential's done, car will go on the alignment rack. We'll check the corner balance, and we will, and actually we do need to re-corner balance this because we pulled 35 pounds of wiring out of the car. Probably won't actually impact the cross corner weights, which is the biggest thing on the corner balance, but it'll tell us where we're at. We'll know our final wet weight on the car with all these changes made. And then it'll just validate that there aren't any other issues we need to look at. So then we just have a week leading up to the race to get the new tires on the car, get them scrubbed, and get the car washed and polished up and ready to go racing.